Hello and welcome to the tower tube rack installation video. Whether you've already purchased one or you're just considering it, this video will give you a really good idea of exactly just what's involved in installing the tower tube rack on a tower and just how simple it is. Here's a quick overview of the installation process. 1, we're going to determine the mounting location of the risers on the tower. 2, then we will actually mount those risers. 3, we will mount support frames that will connect the risers. 4, we will put the crossbars in, which is the part that actually your tube sits on. And then 5, we're going to tighten everything down. That's it. Very simple. All right, let's get started. Step 1, determine the mounting location. So start on your crossbar that's got your ski pylon. And what you're going to do is measure out on both sides. And the tower tube rack is designed with 3 different mounting locations to try to avoid things like speakers or maybe some bolts that you have in your tower. Those 3 mounting locations are 18 inches, 15 inches, or 12 inches on both sides of the ski pylon. So line up your tape measure about in the middle of the ski pylon and then measure out 18 inches. You're going to need about 1.5 inches at that location. So about 3/4 of an inch on either side. If you happen to have an obstacle there, then check the 15-inch location. If there's an obstacle there, then look at the 12-inch location. If you happen to have obstacles at all 3 of those locations, then please check out my video, Troubleshooting Mounting Locations, where I can give you some other options in terms of how you might be able to work around it. So I'm good at 18 inches, so let's go ahead and start working on mounting the risers. For this step, you're going to need the risers, which are the small little square tube pieces, round U-bolts along with their nuts, and the tie rods. Your kit includes 8 different tie rods. There are 4 that are designed for the round U-bolts and there are 4 that are designed for the square U-bolts. So make sure that you get the correct tie rod that works with the round U-bolts. What you want to do is you're going to want to insert your tie rod through any hole. It doesn't matter which one of the holes in the riser. But just use some care when you're putting it in there so you don't scratch up the tie rod. That edge is a little sharp on the riser. Once that's done, you're going to take your U-bolt, come underneath your tower at the location that you had measured, and bring it through the holes in the tie rod. And then using the 2 nuts, you're going to go ahead and hand tighten only. That is a very key aspect of this. We're not going to tighten everything down until the very end because you are going to probably need to make small little adjustments. You just want to tighten it down enough so that it will stay in place, but that I can still move it around if I need to. All right, that should do it. Now go ahead and take your tape measure from the crossbar, measure out 18 inches, and that should be exactly where your U-bolt is. Also, make sure that the tie rod is centered inside the riser. And what that does is that ensures, if your tie rod is centered, then it ensures that your riser is sitting squarely on top of the tower. Okay, now that we've done this side, we're going to repeat the exact same step on the other side of the crossbar with the ski pylon. Okay, I've now completed the second riser, just exactly the same process I did on the first one. And I've checked the measurements to make sure that they are both, whatever dimension you picked, in my case it was 18, it could be 15 or 12, make sure that those are in the right location. Okay, now with the second one done, now we're ready to move on. We're going to mount 2 more, one right in front of the one on this side and one right in front of the one on that side. Now, you don't have the ski pylon to work with, to measure off of, so you're just going to have to visually try to line it up as best you can, and then once we have them mounted, what we're going to do is whatever that dimension was from each side, we're going to double it. So 18, so it'll be 36 for me. We're going to measure 36 inches and make sure that the spacing between those risers is correct. Okay, let's put on the last 2 risers. Okay, we now have all 4 risers mounted. The important thing to remember is 1, make sure that they're centered on the tower, which means the tie rod will be centered. 2, you've only hand tightened. And 3, and make sure that all the dimensions are correct. That will definitely make the rest of the installation process go quicker if you've checked and made sure that everything's in the proper place. Okay, now with the risers up, we're ready to move to step 3, which is mounting the support frames. So there are 2 different types of support frames depending upon which type of tower tube rack you purchased. The small and the large it's just one solid piece, and the adjustable actually has smaller sections that will actually slide out. But the installation process is exactly the same regardless of the type that you have. You'll notice that there's a center hole, and what you're going to want to do is a center hole, we're going to set this on top here, and we're going to want the center hole to be in between the 2 risers. I've already inserted the other tie rods into the top, the ones that are smaller that work with the square U-bolt. So now what you're going to want to do is bring the square U-bolt down through the holes in the tie rod. And just like we did on the bottom, we hand tighten. So we now have both of our square U-bolts attaching the support frame to the riser. Now use your tape measure. This is where you want to measure. See what your distance is between the 2 U-bolts and make sure that your hole is in the center. Now once you've completed that, we're going to repeat the exact same process for the other 2, putting the support frame on the other 2 risers. Okay, as you can see, I've completed the second support frame, making sure that the holes are, the center hole is going vertical. And now we are ready to move to our last 3 pieces, which are our crossbars. Once again, before you do, just double check your dimensions, because this is where everything starts tying together, and it's very important that everything is in its proper place. For mounting the crossbars, let's go ahead and start with the middle one. That will be the longest crossbar, and it will also have screw eyes on the ends. The rear one will also have screw eyes as well. So we're going to start with the middle, and if you look at your crossbar, you'll notice that there's 3 holes on both ends. Those holes line up with either the 18, the 15, or the 12-inch dimension that you used from your ski pylon. So take the crossbar and lay it on top. Now this is where there will be a slight difference between the adjustable version and the large and small version, in that the adjustable version you will actually have different size length screws for doing the front and the rear crossbar. The large and small version has the exact same length. So if you have the adjustable, you're going to be looking for the longer length machine screws. If you have the large or small version, then it doesn't matter. So once you have the crossbar sitting on there, we're going to run the machine screw with one of the washers. Run it down through both pieces, through the crossbar and through the support frame. And then we're going to come at the bottom with a washer and a nut. And we are going to hand tighten. Now this is where the rubber meets the road. If my measurements were done properly before, this piece should just fit right down through, and it did. If it's off a little bit, no big deal. You can just shift your risers around a little bit if you need to, and make sure that that goes right down through. Okay, we have the screws in, and they are only hand tightened. Now at this point you can work on the front or the back, it doesn't matter. I'm going to go ahead and grab the front bar, which will be the shortest, and it will also be the one that does not have the screw eyes on the ends. Another difference between the adjustable and the large and small version is the number of screws that's required to mount the front and rear crossbar. On the large and small version, it's only a single one on each side. In the adjustable version, there's 2 screws, the smaller ones, that are on each side. So I'll go ahead and put the screws through the 2 holes, and then line it up with the 2 holes that are in the extension piece. And then go ahead and put, once again, it's a washer with a screw, and then again on the bottom, washer and nut. Okay, as you can see, I've got the middle and the front one on now. Now I'm going to go ahead and just repeat the exact same process for doing the back. As you can see, we've now got all the pieces are on. We're on the final step, which is to tighten everything down. And this is a very critical step. Obviously, you don't want this thing coming apart while you're using your boat. So the process is we're going to start with one riser at a time. We're going to start with the top square U-bolt. We're going to tighten that down, and then we'll switch and we'll tighten up the bottom. But once again, before you start tightening it, what we want to do is make sure that your support frame is sitting centered completely on the riser. It's not shifted off to one side or the other, and that the riser is sitting perfectly on top of the tower, which, as I said, the way you can tell that is just by looking at the tie rod. If the tie rod is centered inside the riser, then you know that you're sitting on the tower properly. Okay, so we're going to go ahead now. So if you're going to scratch your rack, this is the time that's going to happen. So just be careful when you work with your tools. Try not to hit the edges because these can be a little sharp and they could definitely dig into the coating. So we're going to make sure that our square U-bolt is perfectly centered, and then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start tightening it down, and we're using a 1/2-inch wrench for this. You want to alternate sides because you want the same amount of thread sticking through both sides of the tie rod. So don't just tighten down one side. Tighten them down, tighten down both sides, and if you notice that one's got more thread sticking, then focus on the other side. Make them about even. Now, we don't have to wrench this thing down super hard. You just want to get it nice and snug. Right, that should do it. Now, once you get the square U-bolt, then go ahead and switch to the round U-bolt on the base. Once again, alternating sides for tightening, so you have equal threads on both sides of the U-bolt. Now, as you tighten the bottom, what you're going to want to do is be careful of the fact that there's plastic caps on the ends of these risers to protect your tower and to protect the support frame. You don't have to worry about it so much with the connection to the support frame, but since you've got a square piece that's sitting on a curved tower, it's going to put a lot of pressure right in the center of that plastic cap. So as you tighten, you're going to notice that the cap will start to deform. And once that cap starts deforming, then you shouldn't tighten up very much more than that. You should pretty much be where you need to be. And when it's tightened, I should be able to grab it like this and shake it, and there should be no movement whatsoever. Okay, well, with one down, now we just repeat the same process on all 4 of the other pieces. Once all your U-bolts are tightened down, now you can go ahead and move to the bolts that connect the crossbars to the support frame. You'll need a Phillips screwdriver and a 7/16 wrench. Once again, you don't need to go super tight. Just get it in there nice and snug. Once everything's tightened down, you are good to go. There is one last step that I'm not going to show on the video, and that is included with your shipment are some little 1/4-inch black plugs. The purpose of those is so that you can plug up the mounting holes on your crossbars that you end up not using. I think it's a good idea to go ahead and put those in. That'll help prevent water from possibly getting down through these holes. And just from an aesthetic standpoint, I think it looks better to have these. Thank you for watching the video. If you have any questions, feel free to use the contact page to reach out to us, and we would be happy to answer any questions you have. Check the description box for links of other videos that you can check out for more information on the Tower Tube rack. Also, please check our website for more detailed information and to place an order. And with the help of the Tower Tube rack, let's make tubing fun again.